Joining us for analysis is Kiersten Todt, Managing Director at the Cyber Readiness Institute. She previously served as Executive Director of President Obama's Commission on Enhancing National Cybersecurity in 2016. Kiersten, always good to get your analysis. What is the view on the details of this proposed takeover by Oracle, at least investment in the TikTok US part of the business? Is it going to satisfy, do you think, those national security and data concerns?
Well, if it's a tech partnership, and first of all, Tom, it's great to be with you as always. To answer your question, if it's a tech partnership arrangement, which is what we're hearing that it is, which is a revision to what it initially was, then that really doesn't address the national security concerns, because a tech partnership arrangement means that ByteDance gets to keep all of the data from TikTok, which really is the concern. In the original request by President Trump, which then evolved by August 14th in his new executive order, ByteDance was going to be required to destroy all of the data, and that the wholesale, outright sale of TikTok US operations to a company would mean that there would be no China control over the data, no China ownership of the data. So without that piece, if it's just a tech partnership, then there's really no impact on the original national security concerns. And I believe that this agreement should be looked at more closely and revised.
Right, and it's going to go through that CFIUS process, and in fact, we've already heard from some lawmakers in Washington expressing their concerns about some of these issues. Before we move the conversation on, Kiersten, I just want to bring attention to our viewers. A line crossing the Bloomberg terminal now, Sony falling 3.1%, the most since August the 28th. This is on the back of it cutting its forecast for the PlayStation 5. So Sony falling at more than 3%. Kiersten, in terms of conversations and the discussions about the algorithm that powers TikTok, there is a concern that there's a lack of clarity over who will control the algorithm. Why is that so central to this debate? Why is that so important?
Well, if you take the analogy of the algorithm to essentially the engine of a car, the algorithm is the engine. It's what makes it run. It's what makes a Ford different from a Ferrari. And so if you just give the car without the engine, you really haven't given any of the holy grail. The app itself, the algorithm for TikTok, means that the more content that's consumed, the better the app gets at predicting one's interests. So this is really the core of the addictive behavior that is facilitated by TikTok. So if that algorithm is not allowed to move with the sale, which China in its recent revision to the export rules said it would block any transfer or sale of the algorithm, then the value of TikTok really goes down considerably. And the issue, the national security interest, still is very much at play.
And with this deal, if it does go through, Kiersten, is that Oracle is basically housing the TikTok app within its cloud server. Does that bring any type of security risks?
Well, there's certainly been security risks expressed by Oracle taking this on, because without the proper protocols in place, without the proper guardrails on how to truly protect this data and secure the data, there are concerns that Oracle could use that user data for its cloud service provider, for its marketing. And so it's really important, regardless of what the deal, how the deal goes through, that the protocols for the data protection, the security. But again, it's a little bit of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic if we're just talking about a tech partnership, because the national security interest of ByteDance continuing to own the data of the over 100 million users of American users, that is still a grave national security concern.
So if you were advising the president right now, you're saying this deal needs to be looked at once again. Are you suggesting perhaps TikTok should just be banned in the U.S. altogether?
Well, I think when we look at what's happening with Chinese companies, and I know you've heard me say this before, that when Chinese companies operate in the United States, they're operating with the presumption of guilt. And what we're seeing right now is a game of brinksmanship between China and the United States in this tech Cold War. And what we have to figure out is we understand that we have to cooperate with China as an economic power. We have to be able to compete with China on a level playing field. And we also have to confront China when we know that IP is being stolen. And we haven't figured out how to reconcile all of that. The President Trump has banned dozens of Chinese companies from operating in the United States. China has banned companies from operating, U.S. companies from operating in China. So we continue to go back and forth on these issues, but the issues around this, the theft of intellectual property, the accumulation of data for the long term, we know that China is extremely patient. It works in increments of 50 years at a minimum. All of those issues have to be looked at much more strategically. And so we can answer the question about certainly the immediate national security concern of TikTok, which I believe there is a significant national security concern with TikTok. But we at some point have to stop just doing it a la carte and step back and look strategically at the broader issues and have a strong economic and trade discussion around China and U.S. economic interests.
Kiersten, I just want to shift focus to the US elections in November. Do you have a sense of how active China may be in terms of interference and influence campaigns leading up to those elections?
Well, I don't have classified access right now, but what I can tell you based on the conversations that I've had with senior levels of government in the Trump administration, as well as senior executives and companies, is China is absolutely a concern when it comes to election interference, right up along the same lines as Russia. But what I can also share is that the U.S. government is well aware of this, and the government is working tirelessly, as it has been, to protect the election infrastructure. But it is going in eyes wide open with the threats that are coming from China and from Russia with the presidential election coming up in early November.